Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Tsai in the Toyota Solutions studio at Women in the World, New York City, and I'm so pleased to be meeting this young, inspiring woman. Her name is Eva Maria Lewis. Remember that name because I think it's going to come up again. She's got a lot of titles. She is the founder of the I Project and co-founder of Youth for Black Lives. You, Eva, are an artist, you're an activist, you're an organizer, you're a freshman in college. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. So this is a solutions studio, and I know that that's what you're all about. But first, tell me a little bit about who you are and where you came from.
Yeah, so I'm from the south side of Chicago. I'm 19 years old, and most of my academic career happened on the south side. And then in high school, I went to Walter Payton College Prep, which is an hour plus away from my house. Wow. So I wake up every day, 5 a.m., get home 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. It was dark outside, and I had to do that for 4 years because there weren't good academic options in my neighborhood, and that was the escape. That was the way I had to do that. My mom, single mom, unemployed on and off most of my life. We were pretty much low income, and I had to make do. I knew that if I was going to go to college, it had to be for free, and if I was going to get on that road, I'd have to get the best education available. I knew Payton was the number one.
Was that just in yourself that you wanted that,
yeah.
or did your mom say?
When I was 3, well, she made a sacrifice when I was about 3 and a half. She had to leave her other job because they were moving away, like far. Into the suburbs, and the education out there was definitely not as good as what I could reach in Chicago.
Really?
Yeah, and so I had tested into gifted centers. That's what the thing was. Regular education, fine, but I was in a gifted center, and if I was going to get that gifted center education, then I had to stay there. And so she was like, I had cousins. I had cousins being kind of brought up by my grandmother, and I come from a family with a history of gang activity, and she was like, I don't want that for you, I want this for you. And she made a sacrifice.
What's your mom's name? We have to give her a shout out.
Valerie Lewis.
Okay.
She literally gave up her life for me, did everything she could. And when I was 3, she was like, if you want to go to college, it's got to be for free at this point because we're not going to be able to like do that. And I was like, okay, cool. And when I was in 8th grade, I tested into schools. All I knew was that Payton was the number 1 in the city, and I wanted it. Never visited it, didn't know anything except that it was the number 1, and I knew that the number 1 was what I needed.
And how'd you do in the school?
Good. I got good grades, enough.
Just so you know, she goes to an Ivy League university.
Yeah, I got a full ride to an Ivy. That's all that matters. I did it.
Good for you. Okay, so I'm assuming what you're going to say is out of that experience, you realize there were a bunch of other students that did not have the opportunity to go to Walter Payton School.
Right.
And you wanted to help them. You wanted to be a voice for them.
So I thought it was tragic that you have to leave your neighborhood to go to school. Like so many people at Payton had went to school in their neighborhood, right? And even before I went to Payton, I still had to wake up early because I couldn't go to school in South Shore. I had to leave South Shore in order to go to school. And that was not the experience of anyone else. And I didn't know that. So I had been in this South Side bubble. I go to the North Side, I discover there are Whole Foods, Mariano's, hospitals.
It's a different world.
It's a whole different world. They have everything. They're just sitting in it. Don't even know that we don't have anything out there. And that shook me because I was like, I want that here. I don't want to have to hang out up north. I couldn't even hang out in my neighborhood because you have to avoid gang territory borders. You can't be out after a certain time. Like I couldn't even walk from certain bus stops coming back from school. I had to get picked up from the bus stop so that I could avoid like getting harmed because you never know what could happen at any point in time.
So you were going in between these 2 parts of Chicago
every day.
The north part and the south part, and it was night and day.
A night and day. If there's actually videos on the Chicago Red Line going from Howard to 95th, and it goes from white to black. And that's what I went through. So I'd get on this bus, a J14, and it's all working class black people, and we're all going away for employment. And then all of a sudden you get on the train and it's all white people downtown, and you come back.
Payton with you?
I think I did the calculations, and I think, yeah, because they didn't tell us. So I think it was about 15 to 17%.
Did you feel like an outsider because you weren't from the community, or were you accepted because you were academically gifted?
Well, people told me that I was the first black person that they ever met who talked like this. That was fun.
Talk like what?
I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
Okay.
I had to make a decision. My activism came because I was suddenly in a predominantly white institution. And although I had been around different types of people in my life because my mom had me in Hyde Park after school programs and stuff like that, I'd never been in predominantly white spaces that were catered towards white people that had a model of equality instead of equity. And I had a decision to make. I could either assimilate, let people touch my hair, let people call me things, let people say the N-word, you know, or I could say no, and then you were immediately ostracized because you were angry. You're an angry black woman, right?
Yeah.
And my grandfather, who is now dead, but he taught me, like, to be a woman is to be the backbone. And that's just what he taught me. I didn't know sexism was a thing. It's like got to this school because you get into a PWI, you enter a patriarchal land, you enter racist land, right? And those were so foreign to me. Not racism necessarily, but like in that in-depth experience. And so I went and I was like, what do you mean I can't have this because I'm a black woman? Like, I'm the best because I'm a black woman.
It's also that, did you feel, and you must still feel sometimes, like you can never do right by society.
Right. I was
like you can't be exactly who you are, which is sometimes angry.
Right.
And you don't want to be, you know, the subservient to the patriarchy or however you see it, or the system.
Yeah. So I was like, what's the point of putting on this show if you're going to have a problem regardless? Like, I don't want to feel complacent. I want to feel like I'm changing something. I want to get to the nitty gritty. I want to change all systems that I come across, whether it is a school or it is a country.
So a lot of what you've been doing is organizing, and you've put together a couple large protests. When you just look into your future, where do you see yourself making the biggest impact? Are you going to run for office? Are you going to continue to be a grassroots organizer? And teach?
You know, I don't know. I'm going wherever God takes me, and that's all I can do.
Yeah.
But I just want to be a vessel, and I want to make the most impact. I want to help my community. I want to help my mother. I want to honor her sacrifice. I want to honor the village in which I grew up in, who also, like, the village itself does so much for you, right? And I just want to help people back at home by any means necessary, even if that means reaping the benefits that so many people don't have access to, and reapplying those lessons to people that would not be able to to sit at the table. Where you would access it. I have a seat at the table.
This is the Solutions Studio, so before I let you go, when it comes to the community you care about, the South Side of Chicago, where do you think the solutions begin?
I can tell you that. You know, we have a gun violence problem, and everyone is using our deaths and trauma for their own political agenda. Our trauma is being commoditized all the time. And that's all happening with no regard to the solutions that we have been saying for so long. We've consistently been like, we just want to learn. We just want to live. We just want to eat in our community. We want essentially what the United Nations has declared as universal human rights. And
education,
we don't have access to that.
Health.
Those are all universal human rights, and that's all we want. And if you want to get to the root of the gun violence problem, you need to give people another option. Because if you don't have good education, how are you going to get a job? And if you don't have a job, how are you going to provide for your family? People are not wielding guns and selling drugs because they feel like it. People are doing that because they need to provide. And the same way that I am honoring my mother's sacrifice, there are so many women, men who are honoring their parents' sacrifices in the best way that they can. So we don't need to be demonizing their sacrifice. We need to talk about giving them other options, and that starts at the education level. I've seen the disparity in education, going to Payton and then coming back home and going into Boucher, who I work with right now, and seeing that they don't have any whiteboards. Their textbooks are kind of outdated. They don't have any good computers. Their building is falling apart from the inside out and from the outside in. Like, how is that even possible? And I'm like, how did my school get $17 million at the same time that 54 schools in the south and west sides of Chicago were closed down? How is that right? How is that just?
It's not.
It's not. And so I'm starting there. I'm starting at, if the government won't do it, okay, we can. We can pull our resources together. We can talk to people, and we can figure out how to create our own equitable societies. How do we bridge those gaps? And that's what the I Project is doing. So we're working with Boucher Elementary. This is the first part of the scaffold we're creating. $25,000 will get us Chromebooks for the entire school. Suddenly the whole school will have technology so that teachers aren't struggling to teach, right? And these kids will also be more engaged. That's just the first step, because we want to create a scaffold where we can bridge all of the gaps to make that Boucher an equitable school, to make sure that all of these kids in the school are succeeding.
Just start with one school.
You start with one school, you expand to other schools, and then we get to the grocery stores, we get to the investments in the neighborhoods. This is not just a project. This is a lifetime plan. This is building a community from the ground up.
Eva Maria Lewis, that is a name I'm not going to forget. your voice is heard here at Women in the World. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Really nice to meet you.